In this episode of the Colbrelli Adams Productions Face Off, we're going to be taking a look at the PowerMac G5 in comparison to the Lenovo M55. I'm Nick Colbrelli Adams, let's get straight into it. The PowerMac G5 from 2004 came with an anodized aluminium enclosure with the optical drive at the top and handles on the top and bottom. Access was gained into the system by the door on the side. Once inside, you could remove the fans to gain access to the RAM. The hard drives and optical drives were mounted at the top and you closed the system with the latch. On the other hand, the Lenovo M55 was a bit smaller in comparison to the PowerMac. It was a small black box. Access was gained by lifting the top up. This was a bit more difficult to figure out if you were new to the system. Once inside the system, the components are very compressed and the motherboard is very small compared to that of the PowerMac G5. The Lenovo system gets a score of 3.5 due to that, whilst the Apple PowerMac G5 gains a score of 5.0 because the PowerMac G5 was well thought out and the design is still being used up until 2010. Software support for these two computers gets interesting. The PowerMac G5 can run up to Mac OS X Leopard, but when you get to Windows you might be able to run it via a virtual machine, but we haven't tested that yet. The Lenovo can run Windows, pretty much up to Windows 8, but we have not tested it, so yeah, on paper it should be able to run up to Windows 8. Do not run Windows Vista on this computer though. With Linux, the PowerMac G5 can run various PowerPC supported distros of Linux, and the Lenovo M55 is just pretty much you can run any version of Linux on it as long as it's supported on an Intel processor. And for this section, the PowerMac G5 gets a score of 4.0, whilst the M55 gets a score of 5. Why the G5 only scored as a 4 is because the G5 cannot support new versions of OS X, and it's a bit hard to try and get Linux running on it, whereas the Lenovo M55 can run latest versions of Windows and Linux. The boot up speeds are very interesting in this test. Now, the Lenovo system was the first to show something on the screen, as you can tell now, but that's just because that the older PowerPC Macs take longer to do what they call post, which is essentially tell you, the user, any sign that the computer has done something. Now, the G5 has finished just in under 42 seconds, whereas it takes the Lenovo system a lot longer to do that. What I find interesting is that Windows doesn't take too long to load, but it's the software that comes pre-installed on it that does. Due to these results, the PowerMac G5 gets a score of 4.5, whilst the Lenovo M55 gets an interesting score of 2.0. Now, you've got to remember here that the Lenovo system is at least 3 years newer than the PowerMac, and the PowerMac's hard drive actually sounds more dead than what the one in the Lenovo does. That's just an interesting fact. On the front, the PowerMac G5 has a power button and headphone jack, USB 2.0 port and a FireWire 400 port. On the back of the G5 you've got the DVI port, ADC connector, your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antennas, optical audio in and out, 3.5mm audio in and out, 2 USB ports, FireWire 400, FireWire 800, Ethernet and the 56K modem at the bottom. On the front of the Lenovo there is audio in and out ports and 2 USB ports. On the back of the computer there is the power connector, S-Video and DVI there on the graphics card, your audio connectors for USB there on the left, integrated graphics on the bottom, which I would not recommend using. You've got your printer port there at the top, Ethernet, and a further 4 USB ports on the right hand side. This round is a tie at 4.5 points apiece, mainly because both of these systems have got their own little knacks in hardware department, such as the G5's Firewire ports and the ADC connector, or the Lenovo's printer port and the S-Video connector straight there on the graphics card. Our PowerMac G5 has a 2.5 GHz dual processor variant of the PowerPC G5 chip. It has 4 gigs of RAM with DVI dual link and ADC as your graphics options, and your specialty ports are Firewire 400, Firewire 800 and the 56K modem. On the M55, however, we've got a 2.1 GHz dual-core Intel Core 2 Duo CPU running on 2 gigs of RAM. You can get DVI with an adapter. S-Video is straight on the graphics card, and there is integrated graphics as VGA. Your specialty ports are just the printer port. On the back of the Lenovo system, you've got to remember that the Lenovo system is at least 3 years newer than the PowerMac. And because of that, the PowerMac G5 has scored a score of 5.0, whilst the M55 has scored an interesting score of 2.0, mainly because the PowerMac's got better specs and it's at least 3 years older than the Lenovo system. You can pick up a PowerMac G5 similar spec to ours for around $100 to $200 on eBay, less postage. A pretty amazing price for these things, but you do have to remember that you will need to factor in about $80 for a new hard drive, as most of the hard drives by now are just about dead. Pretty amazing, seeing as though that these things cost $2,000 back in the day. Similar Lenovo systems are going for the same price on eBay, but what the thing is that these things actually have less specs than what the PowerMac G5 has. The only reason why they're going for that price is because they are newer than the PowerMac. Some of these things are coming with Windows 7, in which case you're getting a pretty good deal, but if you're buying one of these things to run Linux on it, I would still recommend to get the PowerMac, just because of the design and the fact that it has better specs. Based on that, it's pretty easy to tell who the winner's going to be. The PowerMac G5 wins this round once again with a score of 5.0, whilst the M55 gets another interesting score of 2.5. In the first round, the PowerMac G5 won at a score of 5.0, whilst the M55 lost at a score of 3.5. Round 2, the G5 lost at 4.0, whilst the M55 won at 5. Round 3, the G5 got 4.5, whilst the Lenovo system got a score of 2. Round 4 was a tie at 4.5 points apiece. Round 5, the G5 scored 5, whilst the Lenovo system scored 2.0, and in round 6, the G5 scored a score of 5, whilst the Lenovo system scored 2.5. This is the verdict, where we tell you who won this comparison. As you can probably tell by the scores, the PowerMac G5 won at 4.7 points. Pretty solid for a system that is at least 10 years old. The Lenovo system lost, however, at a score of 3.3, which is sort of middle of the road on a scale of 1 to 5. The main reasons why the M55 got a score of 3.3 is because of the boot up speeds and the design. Thanks for watching this video on Colbrelli Adams Productions. If you'd like to send us an email, you can sure do that. colbrelliadamsvideos@icloud.com. For updated contact information, visit the channel, youtube.com/colbrelliadamsvideos. Don't forget to subscribe, thumbs up, and leave a comment if you like. Until next time, I'm Nick Colbrelli Adams. Keep your eyes peeled for the next Face Off. Okay, so software support for these two computers is pretty much the exact opposite to each other, and that did not make too much sense.